All right, let's get into this video of Chris Rufo being invited back on MSNBC, as MSNBC first called him the critical Rufo theory or something. Morning, Joe. Their joke. Let's watch.
This is interesting, and it's something that people won't say when they're on the television set. They won't say at polite dinner parties. I'm not sure why they whisper it or text it or email it to me, but liberal members of the mainstream media, Democrats that are huge contributors to the Democratic Party, and even people that work for Democrats. I've heard over the past 3 or 4 years, I've got to get my kid out of this private school. They're teaching my 7-year-old boy that because he's white.
Is there anything funnier than listening to somebody who makes a ton of money talking about their kid going to private school while the rest of us have to be in public school? That's right. Now it's a problem. You infect my expensive private school, and now I'm going to say something. Let's just keep watching.
He's, a racist. He's part of the et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if you've heard the same thing. I've heard the same thing. And again, it's anecdotal, but it sure does seem to match with more and more stories that are going out there. How do we sort through all of this and make sure that we don't throw out teaching about slavery and teaching about racism over the past 400 years, that we don't throw that out with a war against critical race theory and its extremes?
Right. We're going to make mistakes. They're going to be extremes. They're going to be moments of overreach. I grant that. But part of what we have to do in this moment, Joe, and we've talked about this, is to confront the ugliness of who we are. And part of what I
bring on a Princeton professor to talk about elementary, middle school, high school schooling. All right.
Hear in these sorts of arguments is this sense in which that confrontation must be one where we're comfortable, where we feel good about who we are after we confront it. So in some ways, let me just, I'm scooting up in my chair, Joe, because I'm getting upset.
I'm an actor, so I need to show you how I'm acting. I am outraged. Look at my face, it's turning red. I'm angry. That's how serious I am. It's not a joke with me, young man, and I am taking it seriously. I'm a Princeton University professor. I get paid tons of money to tell you how to think and challenge my students. I don't want to give them information. I want to challenge their narrative.
Because we're seeing right now in real time a reassertion of the lie. The very thing that keeps us from becoming a different America, because we don't want to accept who we are. What we've done.
But a reassertion though of what lie?
I don't know. It's just like I'm sure Chris Rufo's about to say something, but it gets exhausting. When somebody just lies to you about what critical race theory is about. They claim it's about just acknowledging that there was some racism in our country's past. Just acknowledging that there was slavery, and that was a big part of who we are. That's not true. This is what happens when you have people that don't actually read some of these books. You don't read the multicultural books. You don't read the books on critical race theory. You just listen to people talk about it, like Barack Obama or Chris Rufo. Even Chris Rufo. You have to read these sources. I'm telling you, this is not true. It's not. It's more than just acknowledging our history. And we want to acknowledge it. And it makes us uncomfortable if we acknowledge it. It's more than that. Its roots are stemmed in Marxism, and it's meant to be taught to college students. Now, where do you indoctrinate kids the most? College. But they want to push it to kids because it's easier to manipulate and to argue and to tell kids a narrative Therefore, the foundation is laid by the time they get to college, then they don't even have to teach anymore. Oh, these people did all their work. Don't learn how to do 2 + 2 or what the scientific theory is. Oh, the scientific method. Don't ask that question because you might, have questions about COVID-19 and stuff like that. You can't have that. Keep listening.
I can believe in 2 Americas. I can believe that 1776 and 1619 can be merged together, that you can believe 2 things at once. I could disagree with critical race theory, but still believe what you and I have talked about, that we have a long way to go to being a just country.
The delusion that takes for people to get to that of saying that we have an incredible long way to go is unreal. Because it wasn't that long ago, there was actual Jim Crow laws. We now live in the freest, most prosperous nation in history. People that are immigrants, refugees from other countries can come here and make something of themselves. That says a lot about how racist of a country we are. Now, are there racists? Are there assholes in the world, as I always say? Yes, there is. And it goes on both sides. As you see people on the left say, black people can't be racist. No, everyone can be racist, okay? Everyone can be a jerk. And sometimes those jerks say terrible things. Now, is it the majority? Do I walk around meeting a racist every 5 seconds, or a real white supremacist, or even some kind of other supremacist, Mexican supremacist, black, Hispanic? Do I walk around meeting those people? No, I don't, because they're so fringe and so small percentage that it's just like you get in a room full of 10 people. Or 100 people, I guarantee you there'll be at least one person that's a douche. Statistically, there's gonna be one person, just one. But is that the narrative? Does that mean that everyone in the room is therefore that way if they look a certain? It's just okay. Let's keep watching.
The way that the founding document said we were going to be. Do I have to choose one or the other?
No. So part of what I'm thinking is that if once you concede the initial claim, that
once you bend the knee and raise your fist in the air and espouse that you do have white privilege and you are a disgusting white individual, you can then accept our critical race theory.
America, in some ways, comes into being in light of this extraordinarily painful reality, the contradiction that is at the heart of our beginnings. Once you concede that, the way in which you begin to think about American exceptionalism shifts. Right? Because it's not this idea that we are wholly innocent, that we're absolved of our sins, that
this
recognizing who we are somehow condemns us to hell, as it were, that we're being bludgeoned by our sins and
am I going to be able to talk?
Guilty. That's not what we're saying at all. But we're saying that you have to confront it in order to release us into a different future. I want to say this really quickly.
Say it.
This sort of argument is happening right now, and I want us to link it to January 6th. I want us to link it to the attack on voting rights. This is, in effect, in my view, Joe, an attempt.
Come on. I cannot stand that about liberals is they put it all together. Right? It's not just black issues, it's black and LGBTQ, and it's also you. You can't just have anybody, an individual thing. This critical race theory isn't just about teaching in our schools. It's also about voter suppression and it's about everything. Oh, serious listening. It's about everything. Keep going.
To arrest substantive change in the country. And we give these folks
the credit that they're Academy Award.
They're making the arguments in good faith. Yes. And I don't think they are. And I'll say it to Christopher right to his face. I don't think this is a good faith argument. Period.
Period. Through the film. I'll say it to the camera. Ergo, 2021's Face to Face. I'm a man.
Okay, so I think this is why it's good.
Did you see him smile? He's like, yeah, that was some damn good acting. I was like, somebody good who acts.
We're having this conversation, and I'm going to ask you, too, if we can continue having this conversation, if that's okay, and the days and weeks ahead.
Sure.
My concern, just bluntly, Eddie, is that the overreach often drives natural allies away.
Is Chris going to be able to talk?
I've seen overreach in some arguments, in my opinion. A lot of people might not like.
We're more than halfway through this clip where Chris Rufo is a part of it. He hasn't been able to say a single word.
Like me saying that. I've seen some overreach on both sides. That's not whataboutism. It's the truth. And that's why I want us to keep this conversation going. And
this is not a conversation. Finally.
You can be against critical race theory being taught in school and still believe that
ask the question.
That we've had slavery for or that black Americans have been oppressed one way or the other for 400 years, that we have a long way to go, that we are a nation that had slavery as its original sin. Are those two thoughts not, can they not exist side by side? Do you not believe that America
5
has,
minutes in.
the
Still hasn't been able to talk.
Racism, and has for 400
years? Are you going to ask the question?
We need to keep working to get past that?
Of course, yeah. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in the country who doesn't believe that. I think that's obvious. But again, that's just the premise of critical race theory. The premise is that America has a history of racial injustice, racism, inequality, slavery, etc., which is absolutely and incontrovertibly true.
Right.
But the critical race theory's conclusion that we should abandon equal protection under the law.
And there it is. That's what I've been saying over and over again. It's the premise. It's the foundation. Correct. That's why a lot of people are adopting it, because they don't get past that. They're just saying, yeah, I accept this. But just because it's the premise doesn't make it the foregone conclusion. Doesn't make you, let's let Chris talk.
We should abandon free speech. We should abandon the system of capitalism, which I've documented and cited and sourced, whether Eddie likes it or not, is something that we should reject and something that we should not be promoting in schools. And the NEA says it in very plain language. They say we need to reject the system of capitalism as a form of oppression. We need to even reject anthropocentrism, the idea that human beings are the most important thing in our lives. They've taken on all of the most radical hard left ideologies. Now they're institutionalizing them, promoting them in all 50 states. And I'm making an absolute good faith argument, good faith disagreement with my folks and counterparts on the left. But you have to wake up. This is not just conservatives and Republicans. In fact, the greatest opponents of critical race theory in education are center-left liberals in places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York City, hardly bastions of conservatism, and also racial minorities, particularly Asian Americans, who've lobbied against it in schools all over this country. It's not a typical black-white issue. That's not the division here. It's simply among different groups of people that disagree on this philosophy.
Eddie, we have to go, but I want to give you the last word. I'm sure you can sum this entire debate up in 15 seconds in good faith. Go.
Yeah, well, we're going to let you have the last word.
Good faith, Joe. I think in order for us to imagine ourselves differently, we're going to have to confront honestly who we are, what we've done. And that's going to require discomfort. We're going to make some mistakes on the way.
This narrative of that you didn't learn about slavery or that you didn't know about some of the horrors America did is a joke. I learned about it in school. And then I learned about it in college even more. But you can only... These people like Princeton, this Princeton professor, have never worked in education. And also probably don't know the mind of a child and how it develops and how you can only give this mind so much stuff. You don't ask them existential questions or deep-rooted issues. You teach them basic truths. And then based on those truths, they have a foundation, and then they can later question those truths later in life. But you can't just go on and just teach them like everything you can possibly think. We need this, we need this, we need to teach this, we need to teach this. We need another subject for teachers to teach. We need this, and then we need to put this in there. Oh my gosh, this is making our country look too good. We need to add this, and then let's just keep listening to this Princeton professor tell how your kids should learn critical race theory.
But we have to do it. We have to grow up, Joe. We have to grow up as a nation.
So can I ask you guys
it's like the stupidest
to come
argument
back
ever.
next week and continue this discussion? Does that sound possible? And we'll go longer, and I'll get into more specifics. This is just sort of a general introduction to a lot of people who are asking a lot of questions on the left and the right about this issue. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds really
Anytime.
good. And Joe, you know, the conversations that we had earlier in the show about January 6th, as Eddie brought up, and the op-ed that we read about China and the importance of
That was
truth.
it.
I think there's a lot that we need to unpack here, and this is not over.
That was it. That was their big little moment with Chris. We're gonna allow you to say one thing, but then we'll give Eddie the final word. They don't want to have this conversation. They're not going to allow them to have. They want to pretend like they're like this unbiased source of information where they allow people from different views to come on and actually have an opinion. Once again, I say this over 100 times. The push that they're pushing right now, that the media is pushing, especially on liberal sides, is that it's just about accepting that America has a really negative past and accepting that there's slavery and that our children have an unfavorable view of America coming out of, school, as if that's true. All my teachers taught all kinds of political crap in school, and that was in the 90s. So, and it's only gotten worse as younger people have gotten into teaching, but whatever. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the media pretending to have a debate? And this is why the media fails. They don't know how to actually have discussion. They don't know how to allow people to have different thoughts. They only want their echo chamber of the same thoughts, because then it's easier just to do little echo segments of like, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah, I agree with that. That's easier than having an actual debate or an actual logical discussion between back and forth and sitting down and no commercial breaks and allowing no one to have the final word, but just to, talking it out and actually having information. That's the guy, listens to Chris Rufo. He rolls his eyes. He makes little smirks, and he's just making all these actions like, this guy's total bullcrap. He's not even engaging in some of the things he says. As the narrative over and over again from the liberal leftist side is that critical race theory is just about accepting America's history. That is not true. That is the basis of it. The basis is that black people have been treated unfairly in history. Do you agree with that? Any logical person would go, yeah, okay, I agree with that. You're right. That, Jim Crow laws were terrible. Slavery was terrible. And they're like, okay, now that I got you, we're going to go down, we're going to take it a whole nother direction. And I just want you to admit that you are the oppressor and that they are oppressed. And it no matter if you're the richest black person in the world, if you are born into a black family, you are oppressed. You're a victim and you can't get out of it. And the world is against you. And the only way to do it is to take over the system and take out the system and take out those who oppress you. Oh, I am excited about America. But I have faith that the media and the people that are espousing critical race theory are losing this argument. They're trying to change the narrative of they're trying to say what it's about. But those that have actually read any kind of multicultural books that just came out that espouse this stuff, which I have, critical race theory book, which I have. Those have read these books know that they're lying through their teeth because they assume you, and I'm talking to you, do not read books and you don't look up sources and you don't look up information and you don't look up a different source besides MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News or whatever. You don't choose different sources in order to find your information. They assume you don't know and you won't take the time to actually look through it. And they don't assume that you don't look up other channels that just have different opinion and that stem from actual facts. They know that we are a culture where we like our TikToks, our Instagram Reels, give us the stuff in 10 to 15 seconds. I don't want to actually do work. I don't actually want to read. I don't want to actually want to get to know this stuff or know the counter arguments of even my philosophy of life. I just want to get told how to think and believe in 15 seconds, and then I just want to go on because I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to think through these tough decisions. I saved you 16 cents this 4th of July. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Derek O'Shea Show. Please subscribe to this, share this on every social media platform. But again, read these sources, read this information. The roots are from Marxism. Ergo, it naturally goes there of the oppressed and the oppressor, and you can guess who fits in which category. I hope they lose this, because critical race theory, when I was forced to read it through my master's level education, I was reading it and was just getting angrier and angrier as I turned the pages. I'm like, I can't believe I freaking paid for this book. Ergo, I paid for this person that wrote this racist crap to continue believing that people just believe it, because people are forced to buy it because they're in school. Whatever. Have a great day, everyone. And as always, I'll see you on the next episode of the Derek O'Shea Show.